What's up, fight fans? Welcome to Mr. Mustache MMA News, and today I want to discuss this Saturday's upcoming card between Sergei Pavlovich and Curtis Blaydes. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly. Alright guys, getting right into it. We got Sergei Pavlovich taking on Curtis Blaydes in this Saturday's main event in the heavyweight division, with a lot of implications as to who might be the next #1 contender, who could be getting a title fight next. I mean, there's a lot of questions to be answered this Saturday between Sergei and Curtis, right? You got Sergei, who's riding a 5-fight first-round knockout streak in the UFC since suffering his first and only loss to Alistair Overeem in his UFC debut a few years back, but since then has quietly become the dark horse in the heavyweight division. Like, he has been putting dudes the fuck away. And most recently, like Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis, Shamil Abdurakhimov. I mean, the way that he's been putting these guys out, he's just been catching these guys sleeping. Like, nobody's really realized how dangerous this guy's boxing is, especially on the feet. And in his debut against Alistair way back when they fought in China, right? It was looking very bad for Alistair early on, and then the second that Alistair was like, wait a second, like, this is MMA, he took it to the ground and put in work, where Sergei just kind of just looked completely lost and clueless out there on the ground. But since then, nobody's really had the chance to get it to the ground. He's been putting guys out so quickly. Like, he took out Marcelo Golm in the first minute. He took out Maurice Green in 2 minutes. He took out Shamil in 4 minutes, right? And then Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa both in 55 and 54 seconds. Like, these guys haven't even been able to get it to the ground. His boxing has been so sharp, his technique. He just hasn't, when he strikes and lands, these guys haven't been able to answer, and like, they look dumbfounded in it. Like, he's just been this dark horse where nobody really has expected him to rise the way that he has to the occasion, right? And clearly, his path to victory is to keep it on the feet, make Curtis pay when he tries to get it to the ground. And Curtis, clearly, he has a very clear path to victory in this fight as well, right? He needs to get it to the ground, and he needs to be dominant, lay quick, ground and pound work to get Sergei out of there. And he can do that. He showed it time and time again. He showed it against Alistair Overeem himself, where he's been able to take these guys who have the power, get it to the ground, and completely eliminate that power threat. But he's been caught before, like Derek Lewis. Since then, though, because I think that was back in 2021, where Curtis kind of got caught going for the takedown against Derek Lewis, and he was put the fuck out, right? But since then, he's racked up 3 straight wins against Rosenstrike, Chris Daukaus, and most recently, who was it that he beat? Tom Aspinall. But that was like a weird controversy thing where he checked a leg kick and it was just over in the first 15 seconds. Very strange fight. So I'm happy, though, that the UFC is giving him a really good matchup. They're not really punishing him for that freak accident. It wasn't his fault that it ended that way. But Curtis, super solid veteran. He has to survive the early onslaught and capitalize on any mistake that Sergei might make and get it to the ground as soon as possible. That is Curtis's clear path to victory in this fight. And he can very well do it. He's done it to guys who have beat Sergei, right? He beat Alistair in the same way that Alistair beat Sergei Pavlovich. Like, so he has a clear path to victory that he can get. And he can get it. If he can get Sergei down, Sergei can be in a lot of trouble, because that's where Curtis is just second to none in the heavyweight division. That is where he thrives, and where most guys in the heavyweight division, top 5, will struggle. That's why I kind of almost want to see like the John Jones matchup, because I think he'll nullify a lot of what John Jones could offer in the wrestling department. But John is a freak. That's why I'd like to see that matchup. So if Curtis gets that victory, we very well could see John Jones, Curtis Blaydes for the heavyweight belt. But John Jones even hinted at retirement if he were to beat Stipe. So I'm not sure that fight might even happen in the first place. I'm not sure. But I love this matchup in the heavyweight division. It's a phenomenal main event, a lot of implications. Either guy can get the title shot or become the #1 contender immediately with a victory here. Sergei's put in the groundwork. He's been the dark horse. He has that Fedor mystique to him where he just seems cool, calm, and collect. Absolutely love that. And Curtis Blaydes, he's the workhorse of that. I mean, he just goes out there and he grinds his victories. And I can see him doing that again against Sergei Pavlovich. So to me, I had this fight as a 50-50. I almost don't even want to pick a winner here. I like Curtis. I wish him a lot of success. But Sergei, what he's been able to do what he's been able to do and who he's been able to do it to has just been impressive. But yeah, that's kind of really all I have to say about that. I don't want to pick a winner, you know, but I think each guy has a clear path to victory, and each guy can definitely execute both paths to victory. Moving next, for the co-main event, we had Brad Tavares taking on Bruno Silva, where Brad, we haven't seen him in about a year, where he lost a decision to Dricus du Plessis, where he, in that fight, man, Brad, I've been watching this guy since he was on The Ultimate Fighter like 12 years ago. Like, such an underrated middleweight. On his best night, he can put these guys away. He's got power. He has finishing ability. He goes out there, he marches guys down. But sometimes when he lacks his confidence, because he almost finished Dricus in that first round. Sorry, I can't speak today, guys. It's been a long day. He almost took out Dricus in that first round. But once he wasn't able to put him away, you just kind of see that confidence leave him like, well, fuck, okay. And Dricus went out there and was like, all right, motherfucker. He went out there and grinded a victory, won the second, third round. And it was very surprising to me to see such a dominant first round. But once Brad couldn't kind of put him away, you see him kind of lose that confidence. He took his pedal way off the metal. And that's kind of been the issue with Brad throughout his career. But he's always gone out there. He's fought top competition, Robert Whittaker, Yoel Romero, Israel Adesanya. He was the victim of Edmund. He was like that reason why Edmund had so much hype, because when Edmund Shabazian, when he was coming out there 22 years old and head kicked Brad Tavares in the way that he did, it just skyrocketed Edmund into like this weird prospect mystique, because it was like, well, Izzy couldn't even do that to him. Like, and Edmund did that to him. That was very shocking. But Brad, super solid veteran, can go out there and beat any given guy at any given day. It just seems to be a matter of self-belief and the willing to go out there and grind himself a victory. And going against a killer like Bruno Silva is a crazy good matchup where it's just, I think one of these guys are going to sleep. But Bruno, yeah, he's coming off of 2 straight losses where he got submitted by Gerald Meerschaert and he lost to former champion and Alex Pereira. But before that, he had some solid KO victories against Wellington Turman, Andrew Sanchez, and who was it? Jordan Wright, where he like basically murdered Jordan Wright. Like, it was like, holy shit. Bruno Silva, man, he's got like the touch of death. But if you're able to kind of survive that and last that and grind on him, kind of takes that power away a little bit. And that's what Brad has to do. So Brad has to be careful early on, which I'm kind of worried about. He's got to be able to go into those second and third rounds and really grind out a victory against a dangerous guy like Bruno Silva. Because Bruno, all he's got to do is go out there, land some solid shots on Brad, and he very well could put a very solid veteran like Brad Tavares away early on. That's definitely Bruno Silva. He's got to hit him early. He's got to hit him hard, and that's his path to victory. Brad, he's got to survive that early onslaught, and he's going to have to really put on and grind out a victory between the second and third round, use his veteran ability in that. Moving on forward, we have Bobby Green taking on Jared Gordon. I love this matchup. We got Bobby Green. Yeah, he's coming off of a knockout loss to Drew Dober, but that was a fight where he was looking fast. He was like a magician out there. Just a true matador. He was going out there. He was touching Drew, getting out of the way. But just slowly, Drew was able to just kind of close that distance, find his mark, and just really slowly work his way down. But if Drew didn't have the chin that he does, I think Bobby would have put him out a lot earlier. I think Bobby would have put out most fighters in that scenario because he was lighting Drew Dober up. And to see Drew just kind of just march him down, be calm, concise, it really shows how good Drew Dober has become and what type of true veteran he's become. Because to do that to a guy like Bobby Green is impressive in its own right. So Bobby Green, I think that he's still going to have a lot of confidence going into this fight, even though he's coming off of 2 finished losses. Bobby Green's a super solid veteran who is really, he can go out there and fight guys in rematches and dominate them in ways that where they were dominated him before, like where he fought Lando Benata the second time. And then the fight that he had with Ally Quinta just shows that he's willing to go out there and fuck dudes up. And Bobby Green is like a true killer. And I love his fight instinct. I love the way that he goes out there and he tries to put on a performance. Going against a guy like Jared Gordon, instant fireworks. Where Jared Gordon, yeah, he's coming off of that loss to Paddy Pimblett. But myself thought he won the fight. Most of the world thought he won that fight. Paddy Pimblett is out there going crazy. But that's why I like what the UFC is doing here. They're giving Jared another good matchup, right? They're letting him still go forward even though he got that loss. They're still treating it like he got the victory, kind of still getting another upper echelon fighter in Bobby Green. I like what the UFC is doing here. is Jared. He can still go out there, and even though he had that loss, he can still move forward with his career. I like that. And a fight like Bobby Green gives him that type of opportunity. And Jared Gordon, he's going to have to wrestle Bobby Green. He's going to have to just survive that boxing. He's going to have to close that distance. He's going to have to get Bobby Green against the fence and get him down. That's what Jared Gordon has to do in this fight. Otherwise, it's going to be a very long night for him because Bobby Green, he's fat, one of the fastest lightweights out there. His hands, he shows no tell. He uses that shoulder roll. He keeps his hands down. You don't see where or when they're coming from, but they're coming fast and they're sharp, stinging punches. I mean, Bobby's a true veteran in the sport, so Jared, he's going to have to go out there, dodge some punches, close the distance, and get it to the ground. That's his clear path to victory in this fight. Love it. Next up, we got Yasmin Lucindo taking on Brogan Walker-Sanchez in the women's strawweight division. Brogan, she was a tough finalist where she lost to Juliana Miller in a fight where Brogan was the huge favorite going into that fight. A wrestling heavy style fighter where she went out there and tried to just dominate early on and tried to really grind and just used everything and just blew her wad early on in that fight. And Juliana, using her length, she was a lot longer, so when she was able to stuff those takedowns, she really beat up Brogan into I think it was a third round knockout, or it might have been a third round submission, I'm not sure. But Brogan in that fight, she was the heavy favorite, and her confidence, she showed it. She was oozing confidence before that matchup. And it was kind of like almost like Raul Rosas Jr. recently. Like, it was a very similar where she just thought that she could just run through this girl, and once she couldn't, she did not have a plan B, and it went to her detriment. She ended up finding herself getting finished. But going against a girl like Yasmin Lucindo, she's coming in, she's coming off a loss as well. Looking at her record, I don't know too much about her, but her previous fights, most of the fights that her opponents were making like their debut, 0-2, 1-0, maybe 4-3. Anytime that she lost, she was fighting a girl who actually had a little bit of experience. And her most recent loss, I think, was to a girl who was, I think, like 8-3 or something like that. And to me, like, I think that she's kind of a lamb walking out to slaughter in this fight. Like, anytime she's fought anybody of some sort of experience, she's gone out on the losing end. And going against a girl like Brogan, who has phenomenal wrestling ability, she's going to get that fight to the ground and she's going to dominate, I think, throughout. And I think it's going to be a very long night for Yasmin. And in a sense, I feel like she's kind of going out there to be slaughtered a bit. Moving on to the first card on the main card. I mean, the first fight on the main card. We got Jeremiah Wells taking on Matthew Semmelsberger in a really phenomenal striking matchup, right? You got Jeremiah Wells, who's coming off of a fucking brutal knockout victory over extreme veteran Court McGee, a guy who's known for being able to take damage, the crusher, right? Jeremiah went out there and just fucking put his lights out. Going against a guy like Matthew Semmelsberger, who is absolutely known for putting people's lights out. Where he's coming off of a very phenomenal victory over a rising Jake Matthews, right? Where he just, every time he touched Jake, he really put Jake down. He was able to just really hurt him and bully him throughout the fight. And every time we see Semmelsberger go out there, he just seems to be better and better and better. He just looks like he's been able to put the pieces together more and more and more. It doesn't look as sloppy, and I think this is a really good fight for him and Jeremiah. I mean, the winner of this really moves forward in the welterweight division, and the guy who loses this fight, they're kind of going to be stuck there at number 25, 26 in the welterweight division, maybe a little closer to that, maybe 2017. They're kind of just going to be there as kind of like always poking at the rankings, but this is a real turning point for both guys in both their careers. And we might end up seeing a bit of a wrestling matchup because both these guys are striking heavy, very powerful dudes. But Matthew, he likes to bang. He's not scared to bang. So I'm really curious to see how Jeremiah Wells is going to react to another guy who's just as young, just as hungry, just as powerful, and just as fast. So that's going to be a really phenomenal card, I think, to kick off the main, a really phenomenal fight to kick off the main card. Moving next, we got Ricky Glenn taking on Christos Giagos. And Christos, who has just kind of been in and out of the UFC, a super veteran, fought guys like Charles Oliveira. He's fought the who's who in the lightweight division. He's coming off of 2 straight, though, finished losses to Arman Sarukian and Thiago Moises. And, you know, I mean, both in the first round. He kind of goes out there and, you know, yeah, he's a super veteran, but when he fights against these super upper echelon guys, like Christos, he's always going to be right there, like 20, 18, maybe 15. He might get himself ranked here or there, but he's never going to be that upper echelon dude within the UFC. I mean, and he always has really good, exciting fights. He goes out there to fight every single time. But if he's out there fighting the upper echelon dudes, it's usually going to be a long night for him. And him fighting a guy like Ricky Glenn, though, and Ricky Glenn, who in his own right, 22-6, right? Coming off of a draw with Grant Dawson. This is a dude who likes to go out there, he likes to grind, he likes to bang. And I think that his style of pressure might break Christos in this fight. I like how they put this right at the end of the prelims because you have two dudes who like to go out there and perform. And I think Ricky Glenn, he's primed to kind of really go out there. He's 34 years old. He's right in the prime of his career. And he's the type of dude who's really kind of just hitting his possibility, his potential. And against a guy like Christos, who's just been there and done that, I think that him riding these two losses, his back's against the wall here. And this is a fight for Ricky Glenn to really capitalize and move himself forward in the lightweight division, right? Moving forward, we got Ronnie Yahya taking on Montel Jackson. Where Ronnie, he was supposed to be fighting Cody Garbrandt, and he just kept pulling out. He kept having injuries. So now he's going to be coming in fighting Montel. Montel, I mean, this is a really good matchup of two guys who, Ronnie is obviously a jiu-jitsu specialist, and he's a submission specialist. And Montel, he's got to keep this fight on the feet. A dude who's 12-2, riding a 3-fight win streak over guys like Julio Arce, JP Base. I mean, he's this type of dude who's been in the UFC for a while. He's got some good victories over Andre Sukumtab, Brian Kelleher. You know, he lost to Brett Johns and Ricky Simone, but those are, I mean, top 10 dudes in bantamweight, right? So, I mean, Montel, the only time he's lost is the top 10 guys. Anytime he's fought anybody a little bit lower of echelon, sorry, I can't speak today. He's really come out on top. He's not the type of guy who's going to go out there and get the finish. You know, I mean, most of his last fights, I mean, I think he only has 2 finishes in his last, like, 8 fights. So, I mean, I really don't really see him going out there and putting on the pressure. I see him being kind of more defensive in this fight. I really see Ronnie kind of going out there and pushing the pace, trying to get the fight to the ground, try and work some leg locks, maybe some Imanari rolls. I can definitely see Ronnie trying to do some crazy wild shit. Montel, I really see him being very reactive in this fight and kind of fighting off of his back leg. That's kind of what I have to see. And what he really has to do is just kind of survive the early onslaught of Ronnie in this matchup, or make Ronnie pay really early on and be able to capitalize on that. It's kind of his 2 routes to victory here. Just kind of make Ronnie tired, make him blow his wad, or catch him early on and damage him early on to make him more hesitant to keep the fight to the ground so he can keep it more of a striking matchup. Because that's going to be where Montel kind of shines if it keeps on the feet. Ronnie, super veteran. He said that he's not looking past this fight, but he definitely wants to get the Cody Garbrandt fight again. So he's definitely extra motivated to go out there and get the victory. 38 years old. He's got to get it now. 21 victories by submission. So, I mean, if he can get the fight to the ground while they're dried, you know, and not too slippery, I can definitely see Ronnie getting an easy submission victory in this matchup. Moving next, we have Cara Rosa taking on Norma Dumont. I mean, Norma, I don't know too much about her. I know that she was kind of like at featherweight. She's had issues making weight. So I'm really curious to see if she makes weight in the first place. But she's lost to girls like Macy Chasson, Megan Anderson. So, I mean, but she's got really good victories against Felicia Spencer, Aspen Ladd. She got some good performances, but she has some issues making weight. I'm really curious to see if she's even going to make weight in the first place. And going against a girl like Cara Rosa, I don't know too much about her. Victory over Lena Landsberg, her only loss was Sarah McMahon. I remember that fight. Yeah, and Sarah really just outworked her in that matchup. Yeah, I really don't know too much about either of these women. It seems Norma has definite better victories over better echelon of fighters. Her victories over Aspen Ladd and Felicia Spencer definitely stand out to me. And then she had the split decision loss to Macy Chasson. I'd have to rewatch that fight. I do remember watching it, but I don't really remember my thoughts on it. That was about a year ago. But, I mean, I think Norma, she definitely has the better resume. So, I mean, I guess I'm going to go with Norma in this matchup. Just by paper. We got Muhammad Usman taking on Junior Tafa. Another fight I can't really say much about Muhammad. I know he had that victory at the Ultimate Fighter, became the Ultimate Fighter. That's really all I know about him, so I really can't say too much about it. And looking up these other matchups, you got Francis Marshall taking on William Gomez. I don't know much about these guys, so I can't say anything about that. Priscilla Cauchera. I don't know the female she's fighting. So again, I'm not going to say anything about that one. And then we got Brady Heistand, a guy who I think is super big for the bantamweight division. And I think that he has a very solid future ahead of him. But going against a guy like Dana Bagriel, say that 10 times fast. He's going to have a really good test in front of him. Two guys who really like to go out there and push the pace and try and get that victory. Brady, who's coming off of that loss, he definitely has to go out there and get the W here. And I think he had a knee injury pretty recently, so I'm curious to see how he's recovered and rehabbed since that loss and that knee injury. I'm curious to see where his head and his confidence is. And then Dana, another guy who he likes to go out there, push the pace, 33 years old, 12-4. Yeah, he's coming off of 2 losses in a row, but one of them was to Chris Gutierrez. Yeah, it was the spinning back fist. That was him. But he went out there and he murdered Brandon Davis. And Brandon Davis himself, he's no slouch. Yeah, he's not in the UFC anymore, but he was definitely known for his toughness. Guys who are really good had a lot of tough times against a guy like Brandon Davis. So a guy like Bagriel, I mean, yeah, he's coming off of 2 losses in a row, but that one knockout loss was to Chris Gutierrez on a murderous spinning back fist, which would have probably put out any other guy in the world. So I really like this matchup between Dana and Brady Heistand. But Brady, he's got a chin like a motherfucker. He's young. He's hungry. He's got phenomenal wrestling. So, I mean, I got Brady getting the victory in this fight. Guys, that's going to do it for my UFC Pavlovich and Curtis Blaydes breakdown. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Let me know all that good stuff. Don't forget to like and subscribe to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly. All right, guys, Mr. Mustache, MMA News out. Let's fucking go, fight fans.